You know, when I was in high school, I didn't have superpowers like Kamala who could stretch her arms out and save people's lives. No, for me, my superpower was always being on time for class and never missing a day of school. Okay, wait, I missed like 1 or 2 days. Senior skip day, you know. What's going on, everyone? James here with another real review, and today, yes, we're diving right into the first 2 episodes of Disney Plus's Ms. Marvel. A huge thank you to Disney Plus for giving me the chance to watch these early for review. My oh my, what a treat this show has been so far. I cannot wait till you guys get to see this. It releases weekly beginning June 8th, so yes, 1 episode per week, and the first 2 episodes are directed by Adil and Bilall, who directed episode 1, and the second episode is Meera, Menon, and I am so impressed by what we've gotten so far. The show stars Iman Vellani, who plays Kamala, Matt Lintz, who plays Bruno, and Yasmeen Fletcher, who plays Nakia. Now, I am someone who has never read the comics at all. I don't know much about the character herself, but this show is a nice little introduction, especially for those who aren't familiar. Now, did I love everything about it? No, but we will dive into both my positives and my negatives. Before we get into that, though, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I absolutely love talking about TV and movies like this all the time. So if you do too, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on the bell, and hit the thumbs up button. We are on the road to 10,000 subscribers, and it all is thanks to you. And if you haven't already, get loud down below in the comments and let me know what you thought of both episodes if you're watching this after you've seen both episodes, and if you haven't, which character are you most excited to see on the big screen? Alrighty guys, so let's get right into the show. And again, if you don't know much about it, let's go ahead and talk about it now. Kamala is a Muslim American teenager growing up in Jersey City. An avid gamer and a fan fiction lover, Kamala is a superhero mega fan with an oversized imagination, particularly when it comes to Captain Marvel. Yet Kamala feels like she doesn't fit in at school and sometimes even at home, that is until she gets superpowers just like the heroes that she's always looked up to. So if you're thinking, wow, this sounds like a coming of age story, you're kind of on the right page there. So you know what, let's dive into the positives, and it really does begin with that. I love the coming of age vibes from this show, and they work for me. Iman Vellani just owns this role and really captures the essence of this character very well, both the adolescence and the confidence of Kamala, or as some in the show know her as, Nightlight. But man, there are so many relatable moments for me, and as someone who, yes, remembers high school very well, I do think that there are some instances where I thought, oh man, I've been a part of those situations, but then there are going to be some instances that are very unique to her and to young women in high school. So I love that this movie really does cater to both audiences, old and young. And something that Ms. Marvel does very well is the Muslim American representation that is displayed on screen. I mean, it really is just incredible to see because we've never gotten something like this in the MCU before. I can really see Kamala connecting to a broader audience, especially those who are Muslim, but this character is very unique to the Muslim American experience, at least from what I've spoken to with some of my friends. They've told me that this is very unique to that experience, and it's really awesome to see some montages in episode 1 of just Kamala and her mother going shopping, and different instances where, yeah, she's being punished for staying out late, for example. It's the little moments like that that really add a lot of humanity to this show. It really is grounded in so much emotion, and it's due in large part to the representation that we get on screen. But it's not just Kamala as a character that's made this show really enjoyable for me. I also have to look to the supporting cast, who's also strong, and they're led by Bruno and Nakia. Matt Lintz does an excellent job as Bruno. His last name is Carrelli here, so if I'm wrong, please tell me in the comments. But I love what he does for the character of Kamala, where he is crushing on her a little bit, you know what I mean? But he's there to support her and just encourage her in every situation, including at the Avenger conference in episode 1. So just a really strong performance from Matt Lintz. But then you also have Yasmeen Fletcher, who plays Nakia, the friend, or the girlfriend, I should say, to Kamala in school. And she's also running for the mosque board. I guess it's like something to do with, if I'm not mistaken, like policy and stuff like that at that mosque. So it is just really interesting to see the dynamics of her circle, her inner circle, and how it does shape her as a character as we get deeper into episode 2. But honestly, I do relate to Bruno the most. He's a nerd, but he's also pretty funny and is crushing, like I said, on our leading lady here. But it's not just about Yasmeen Fletcher and Matt Lintz, guys. There is another actor that I absolutely loved, even though he had like limited screen time so far. It is Arian Moayed, who I actually really enjoyed in Spider-Man No Way Home, but also, most importantly, in succession. I mean, Arian Moayed is one of those actors that I just kind of focus in on whenever he is on screen, so it is awesome to see him play around in the MCU universe some more. He is just so darn good, and I can't wait to hopefully see him have a bigger impact on the greater MCU as a whole, even if it is just in a supporting role. And the next thing I loved about Ms. Marvel is this break away from the serious tone of the MCU shows we've gotten before this one. Most notably Moon Knight, and then you have WandaVision, and some of those shows really just are focusing on very important and serious issues, and they're necessary, but it isn't as playful, you guys. Ms. Marvel immediately sets a tone from episode 1 that this is going to be a show that caters to a younger generation, and there's nothing wrong with that. I had a lot of fun just kind of turning my brain off a little bit in those instances and just understanding that this is a high school girl. There's no reason why we need to get like super serious and dark right away. If anything, the playful tone is what really separates this show from the others. There's a lot of quirky dialogue, and even the visual effects of 2D drawings coming to life on sidewalks and buildings while Kamala is walking around Jersey City is absolutely breathtaking. Seriously, the VFX work here is really solid, even when it comes to her powers on full display. I know there's a big debate about her powers, but Kamala Khan's powers here versus the comics, from what at least I understand, yes, huge. In terms of differences, there's a lot of differences between them, but I actually really love what they've done visually with her powers, and it's very cosmic, so it does kind of fit in with the whole Doctor Strange element of it all. And I don't know, there's a lot that the MCU is doing now in terms of cosmic and magic that this show kind of just fits right in between, and it worked. And speaking of Kamala and her family, guys, before we get into the negatives, I do want to talk about her family dynamic here. I actually think that the funniest moment in the MCU of the past like 2 or 3 years is found in episode 1. There's this Big Hulk, Little Hulk scene with Kamala and her father that just had me in tears. But it really is her family life that's explored here that actually kind of puts the cherry on top of everything that Ms. Marvel's doing well so far. Each member of Kamala's family has something to love, and their acting is actually pretty darn good, beginning with her brother Amir, who's played by Sagar Shaikh, and her father Yusuf Khan, who's played by Mohan Kapoor, and her mother Munebi Khan, who's played by Zenobia Sharaf. Now excuse me if I've mispronounced any of those names, but I do think that in her family there are going to be maybe some fan favorites, starting with Amir. He is so funny and provides a lot of effective comedic relief, including a scene in episode 2 that just, oh man, it made me laugh so hard. But then you also have Yusuf Khan, who is Kamala's father, but Mohan Kapoor, who plays this character, does a good job at balancing between being funny himself but also being incredibly heartfelt. There is a scene that literally tore my heart out of its chest. Well, it doesn't have a chest, but my chest. And it really just made for a complete episode. And that's the thing, her familiar layer here in this episode, it just kind of adds to this show. But even with all of those elements that I loved about Ms. Marvel, there are some negatives here, so let's dive into this section now, and it begins with episode 2, which exposed a lot of flaws. Now, this episode isn't the worst thing I think the MCU has put out, but it is something of concern because there's just too much going on and not all of it worked for me. There's a lack of focus that episode 1 had, and in episode 2 a lot of storylines kind of surface and it becomes a little convoluted, which throws off the pacing and distracts from what works, which is Kamala's coming of age story. I think that there are going to be some effective subplots that they've already introduced in episode 2 down the line, because I think it's only 6 episodes this season, but I just have a funny feeling that episode 2 is going to be one that doesn't really win over audiences. And for me, not even the writing worked all the time. It was very on the nose, and unfortunately there was a lot of exposition. And as someone who's a bigger fan of show don't tell, I think that I got a little bit lost in episode 2 when they're explaining a lot of the cosmic side of Ms. Marvel. I don't necessarily understand why they really wanted to push all of this into one episode. We could have probably evenly spread this out over episodes 2 and 3, but they wanted to get us started on a high note, I guess, and kick us into overdrive. I just don't think it worked too well in episode 2. And one decision I didn't agree with was how quickly it felt Kamala Khan learned to use her powers in episode 2. Guys, it happens like this in episode 2. I couldn't believe how quickly she was able to use what it is she has been given by this bangle that she has on her wrist. I thought that maybe the training montage that they showcased as well with Bruno was very rushed, and I didn't even think her hero moment in episode 2 felt earned to a degree, because there should have been a little bit more development, right? Character development for her learning these powers. It would have maybe felt a little bit easier to transition into, but I'll accept it as it is. I just don't necessarily think it resonated as much as it could have emotionally, because she just gets her powers and kind of knows how to use them. I don't know, it felt like it was almost a little, yeah, too rushed. But overall, you guys, even though episode 2 wasn't very strong and there are some issues that I have with these first 2 episodes, I think Ms. Marvel so far is a win for the MCU. Iman Vellani is a star in the making. She is so charming, she's very personable, and I loved, honestly, what she did with Ms. Marvel as a character. Kamala Khan is just so incredibly relatable in some instances, and I haven't felt this way with an MCU show, honestly, since they began with WandaVision. Now, I'm not saying this is on the same level as WandaVision, but I will tell you that visually, there are some stunning moments, and I do like the supporting cast quite a bit. The one thing that really won me over, though, was being transported into this life of Kamala Khan and the Khan family. I loved the representation on screen, and I think that this is going to speak even more directly to Muslim Americans here in the US, and that is so beautiful. There's even a name drop that kind of ties in another movie with this show in episode 2, I believe it was, that's gonna make you probably smile if you enjoyed that movie. But there's so much about this on an emotional level that works for me. I just really hope they don't continue on the same trajectory as episode 2, where they just kind of stuff in way too much into one episode. They have a lot of weird moments where the pacing feels off and the exposition is, well, everywhere. That's my biggest concern moving forward, but so far, so good with Ms. Marvel. Now, I need to know down below in the comments what you think. If you're watching this as episode 1 is already debuting, let me know down below in the comments. And hey, if you haven't already, hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel for more reviews and reactions just like this. Alrighty, you guys, well, you know what? I'm gonna go and see how I can get me a bangle for some superpowers. I mean, I'm looking around my room and I got no bangles. I got like an Apple Watch that's probably not gonna work. Sorry, Apple. Alrighty, y'all. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.